Hello, friends. This is Dave Hurwitz, executive editor at ClassicsToday.com, here with Works That Never Seem to Work. And this one is something that one of you suggested, and oh, how right you were. It's the Berlioz Requiem. Now, it seems to me that a lot of pieces that fall into this category of things that never quite come off are going to be large choral works or operas or things, simply because there are so many things that can go wrong. You know, the logistics of putting them together are so difficult. I mean, just really difficult. And nothing sort of caps the universe of logistical difficulty more than the Berlioz Requiem. Let us understand why. First, you need to find a room that you can do it in. You know, most concert halls are hopelessly too small, which means the work has to be cut down to size, which is a mistake because size is its whole point, right? Let's look at, here's the score, and let's just see what Berlioz wanted. And that will give us, I think, a very, very good idea of why we have problems. Let's see here. Well, here is the instrumentation list. And the instrumentation list is like completely, totally, absolutely nuts. You ready? Now these are minimum forces, mind you. 4 flutes, 4 oboes, 2 English horns, 4 clarinets, 4 cornets, which are like, trumpets, valve trumpets, cornets, a piston, they're in the trumpet family. 12 horns, all kinds of keys, 8 bassoons, 4 tubas, 16 timpani in 8 pairs, 2 players per pair. So that's 16 timpanists. Go find them on the street, why don't you? Then we've got a tenor drum, a bass drum, 4 tam-tams, 10 cymbals, both suspended and otherwise, and then a chorus. The chorus is 80 sopranos and altos, 60 tenors, 70 basses, and they're divided into soprano, alto, 2 tenor parts, and 2 bass parts. See the composer's note on page 9. We'll get to the composer's note on page 9. Then you've got violins 1 and 2, 25 players each, so 50 violins, 20 violas, 20 cellos, 18 basses, and then wait, we're just getting started. It also calls for 4 brass ensembles, designated by the stage position relative to the main ensemble. A total of 38 instruments, 4 cornets, 12 trumpets, 16 trombones, and 6 tubas, distributed in north, south, east, and west formation. Now, let us go to the composer's note on page 9. Hang on a minute. Here's page 9. There we go. The numbers indicated are only relative. If space permits, the chorus may be doubled or tripled and the orchestra be proportionately increased. Yeah, right. But in the event of an exceptionally large chorus, say 700 or 800 voices, I mean, of course, you find those all the time too, the entire chorus should only be used for the dies irae, the tuba mirum, and the lacrimosa, and the rest of the movements being restricted, mind you, to a mere 400 voices. Let's do it in French, shall we? I mean, I just love it. Ces indications de nombre ne sont que relatives, et l'on peut, si le local le permet, doubler ou tripler toute la masse vocale et augmenter un peu la masse instrumentale dans la même proportion. Seulement dans le cas où l'on aurait un chœur immense de 700 ou 800 voix, par exemple, il ne faudra le faire chanter tout entier que dans le dies irae, le tuba mirum et le lacrimosa, n'employant pour tout le reste de la partition que 400 voix seulement. There we go. All right, so you've got this ridiculous number of people, just a ridiculous number of people, and 4 brass bands in north, south, east, west corners of the building. It was written for an exceptionally large space obviously. And if you're going to perform it nowadays, it usually has to be cut down. The instrumental forces are usually, as indicated there, the minimum, but the vocal forces are usually quite a bit smaller. And so it, I mean, you know, that's number one. That's one reason why it almost always fails, because the proportions are off. But even if the proportions were not off, the biggest problem with the Requiem, the biggest one, is that you only hear the full forces in those three places where Berlioz indicates, which is maybe, I don't know, 20% of the whole work, 25%. The rest of the time, it's actually a very quiet, hushed religious work, with a lot of very beautiful, moments and gorgeous choral writing. But it's a big disappointment because everybody wants to hear it for the big moments. You want to hear the brass bands going crazy and the chorus screaming, and it's thrilling. I mean, the big moments are absolutely thrilling, assuming they come off and the balance between the voices and the instruments isn't completely wonky. Yeah, that's what you want to hear. Then the rest of the time, it's like, everyone's like, well, what's the big deal? I mean, this isn't terribly thrilling. I mean, it's not doing anything at all. It's just sort of doing a requiem thing. It's hushed and it's solemn, and there's that moment where the trombones are playing pedal tones with the flutes way above them. It's like blah blah blah. It's like some strange groaning noises in some of the movements, and you've got this tenor solo. This endless tenor solo, really endless tenor solo in the Sanctus. It just goes on and on and on. And you're waiting, and you're waiting, and you're waiting, and waiting and waiting. And particularly after the Lacrimosa, the whole work is just this giant decrescendo because the full group doesn't participate. I mean, yes, at the very, very end, you've got, all the timpanists playing quietly, mind you. You see 16 timpanists, and they're like tap, 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 like that. That's really, really, really a letdown. And so performances that really keep the whole thing together, that have the amplitude to really put over the big moments, but don't bore you to tears in the rest of it, that's the challenge. I mean, the music is extremely beautiful. It's a wonderful work. I mean, it really is. Don't get me wrong. And there have been 3 recordings that basically measure up. And really, when you think about it, I mean, even that's kind of a miracle that happened. They are the Bernstein, which was, recorded in Les Invalides or someplace like where Berlioz intended it in Paris, this huge space. And they actually managed to capture it rather well. And it's a very compelling performance, although the choirs are French choirs, so they're kind of like, eh. But then again, they were when Berlioz wrote it, so it's authentic. And there's that one. There's the first Colin Davis, which is much smaller scale with the London Symphony, but it's very, very powerful performance and beautifully shaped, and you can really hear everything, which is kind of nice. And best of all, Charles Munch and the Boston Symphony, which has the amazing acoustic of Boston Symphony Hall. And Munch, who is the most amazing Berlioz conductor of the 20th century. It goes nuts where it should go nuts. It has power where it has power. And it moves along where it needs to move along. Those are the 3. And in the digital era, of course, there was this urgency to do a spectacular digital powerful recording of it. Like, Robert Shaw did it for Telarc, and Andre Previn did a digital one that was supposed to supersede the Colin Davis. And they're all one way or another just failures. I mean, they're not great. Some of them are okay, but boy, Dutoit did one, ugh, terrible. Lauren Mazel did one on Decca, ugh, boring. Really kind of fascinating to me. They either miss the big moments, or they die in the slow, quiet moments, or both. That's what happens with the Berlioz Requiem. It's just one of the reasons, or several of the reasons, here they are, why it never seems to work, whether live or on disc. Actually, I have to confess, to wrap it up, it works better live than on disc. It works better live because, first of all, you can see what's going on, which helps. And second of all, when you're in an actual room, the smaller moments don't recede quite as much as they seem to, as they do on recordings. In other words, there's a fullness to the sound, a texture to the sound in a live performance with real people singing in front of you that allows you to maintain your interest, and it gives the piece a lot more, I don't know, it seems to have a certain energy, a tension that doesn't really carry through on recordings. I mean, I've seen it 2 or 3 times. The best performance I ever saw was in Jerusalem with the Jerusalem Symphony Orchestra under Gary Bertini, with like all the brass bands of the Israeli army and everybody else, that they could gather together performing it. It was really an extraordinarily fine performance. Not the biggest, but it really had a wonderful flow to it. It was lovely. The others that I've seen have been, okay, one way or another. I mean, it's fun to go see because you just see all these people out there, and but it really very, very seldom works. Even so. So that's one of them, and maybe the biggest of all of the choral failures that you're going to encounter in your life. It's still worth going to see, of course. Hope springs eternal. So keep on listening, friends. Thanks for joining me. Take care.